John Lee, thank you so much for coming to my first ever real conversation or raw talk on my channel. I've been invited to different talks, but I never really hosted my own, and I'm so happy to have you as a first guest. As I was telling you earlier, you are exactly the reason why I started this show, okay, or why I'm starting this show. I always believe that people should educate themselves about certain things that we were never taught in school. That's my first message or my first DM to you. And everything you do is about that, right? So John Lee, the John Lee, is a huge investor and a speaker. You've written 2 books, co-authored one and wrote another. Wealth Dragon is currently on the table, The Wealth Dragon Way. Wealth Dragon Group is your company. This is where you do all your seminars and your talks, correct?
Correct.
You can elaborate a little bit on that. I'll give the floor to you to elaborate. I'm just so excited to have you here because there's so much people can learn from just the basic life skills, and no one better to learn from than you, I think.
Well, Tracy, thank you so much for having me. First off, I think it's an amazing message of what you're doing. I think when we talk about the whole education system and how we do things, because the thing is, a lot of things that we do in life is not, it really has been conditioned, you know, Asian background, go to school, get a job, work for somebody else. So I'm so thrilled to be on the show and to be honored to be on the first one, to be able to talk about this very subject I'm truly passionate about. I always think to myself, do the things we learn at school matter? I mean, I've never used algebra in my life, right? Or I've never used, you know, things that Pythagoras theorem, things like, even though maybe it's problem solving skills, I don't know, but sometimes we want to, I mean, the ultimate thing of school is you go to school, get a job, work for somebody else. So to work, why do we work? We need to have money because the world is money. We got to play the game of money. So if that's the case, then shouldn't we be learning more about money in school?
100%. I mean, honestly, when I was reading Business Hack, your first book,
Second book.
that was Business Hack was your
Second,
second.
yes.
The first one is The Wealth Dragon
Yes.
Way, correct? When I was reading Business Hack, because I read it first, I remember seeing that phrase. You said something about like, why are we not learning how to manage money in school instead of, you know, calculus or whatever it is? Those things that we learn and spend so much time, hour after hour in school learning, but we really don't make any use of it, right? Not to say that we shouldn't learn these things, but they should be in parallel with life skills that we could use on a day-to-day. I think I can speak for myself where I struggle a lot understanding how to invest my money. Okay, I want to do it, and I'm sure a lot of people out there are thinking, okay, property investment, trading, stocks, and you're like, okay, but where do I start, right? So unless you have the discipline to educate yourself or to look for the education outside of school, you're never going to get it really in school.
I'll give you a classic example of that right now. It's NFTs. I mean, Dubai has now become the hub, it seems, of this crypto space, right? And so, but imagine if we learned the financial skills of understanding charts, when the market's going to move up, when it's going to move down, when it's going to stabilize. If we understood assets, because people think that their own property is an asset. It's not. It's actually, the definition of an asset is something that puts money into your pocket, right? But property doesn't put money into your pocket. When you're living it costs you money every month. Most people have a mortgage, unless you have any cash. You got your bills to pay, repairs. So it actually is a liability. It's not an asset. So the true definition of that, we don't really understand. But yet, you know, we go to school. In fact, you know, in a lot of the parts of the world, most people have to pay for their education, right? This is formal education. So when I graduated from university, I don't know about you, but I had a lot of debt, right? So I spent a lot of time working in a job, you know, from 9 o'clock to like 8 p.m. at night, and I have to pay that, a lot of that to pay off. So even though I was making money, I wasn't really making money. And when I calculated it, there was, I mean, here in Dubai, you're very blessed to not have the, like in the UK, we get taxed. We have VAT, which is 20%, you have corporation tax. So like by the end of it, you don't really have that much left. And so it just feels like you're making a living.
100%. I mean, I think you're just literally speaking my words. The issue I've always had, I mean, I used to be in corporate before, was no matter how many times I get promoted, I would be so happy with that raise. But then I'm spending all that money, although I probably would have started, let's say, with, I'm saying anything for now, $20,000 a year, let's say, okay? Then from the 20,000, I'm like, okay, now I'm making $40,000 a year. Now I'm making $100,000 a year. So starting from when you're really, really small to when you're really growing. But even so, you end up spending all of that money. And you wonder how you were able to not spend as much on your first promotion, but now all of a sudden you're losing and burning all that money.
I'll tell you the key. Do you know where that comes from?
Tell me.
Our childhood conditioning. So again, being Chinese, like parents, we have a Chinese takeaway, or you do little chores around the house, and if you want to make this money, you have to do this. So that's a lesson I learned. But then when you get all your, your allowance, for example, I just get £3, you just spend it all. You spend it all. And so like that conditioning from school is you go to school, you got to get your car, you have to get your mortgage, right? And then you get married, and you have kids. So all these things, it's almost like it's like a trap.
Yeah.
It felt like, why don't they teach you to create recurring income instead of active income? So recurring income is you create something once, and then you put a little bit of effort in, but it keeps producing income without you having to work. But actually 99% of the population in this world are taught to trade time for money. Now, good news is we had the lockdown. So the lockdown kind of disrupted that a little bit. It was kind of like, oh, I can work from home, right? And then that happened for a couple of years, and people went back to work, and then people decided, wait a minute, I don't like working here anymore. I want to be at home with my kids. I want to be able to do some work and go and get a cup of tea anytime I want,
Yeah.
And so that's why you had you had the Great Depression. Now you have the Great Resignation. Millions of people around the world just quitting their jobs. I have friends who are on six-figure salaries saying, John, I'm taking a pay cut so I can work less. And so it's very interesting so we're having this conversation and for people to listen to this, because now we don't do the same thing. We have to do things differently. We have to do things differently.
Yeah. I know that you're very inspired by Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So was I. But it's about the rat race that you're talking about, where people believe that the longer you work, the harder you work, the better or the more qualified you are, or even getting that formal education will get you the best job. And I guess what you're saying is you can work less and make more through passive income. Put that effort at the very beginning, generate something that will cover those bills through passive income, and then find the next thing or find the next goal. So the idea is to be able to get much more out of less time. So how would you tell someone to start? I mean, how do you start with passive income?
So there's a number of things. There are different types of ways to do it. And it really depends on your personality. So you can do it the Warren Buffett way, which is what we call value investing. So he doesn't work in the business operationally, but he does a lot of research on companies, about 6 hours a day, analyzing profit, loss statements. I mean, you're from the financial, so you know if the company's going to be profitable or not profitable. You can do it the Elon Musk way. So Elon Musk is more, we want to create something that we are he wants to colonize Mars, right? It's kind of like what I want to do. I want to revolutionize the whole education system to teach people these things that we're having, like we're talking about now. So Elon Musk way is you're passionate, you drive it, you live it, you breathe it. It becomes a part of who you are. And then you have the trader, right? You've got people who can look at a chart, and I have friends that really, they only work about 2-3 hours a day. They can look at a chart and they go, okay, the pound versus the dollar versus the yen, or the Bitcoin versus the Ethereum and the Ethereum. So all these different, they can just look at the chart and go, oh, okay, it's going to go up. So that's another skill set. You have to be very disciplined with that. And those type of people tend to be people who don't like to start their own businesses. They value their time. They want to be able to leverage time. And it's interesting because I heard something yesterday. So a good friend of mine, Vishen, who runs Mind Valley, and he was saying like he was here in Dubai and he was with a billionaire, and he said, do you know how do you become a billionaire? I said, how? And he said, well, you have to learn to only work 18 hours a week. So what do you mean? What do you mean 18 hours a week? Because it's counterintuitive, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because we think that, okay, the harder we work, the more money we make. And I used to think that, and to an extent, that's true. If you're if you're a startup, if you are Elon Musk, then of course you got to put that time in, and it's like that. But it's not working hard; it's working smart.
Correct.
It's understanding how we can leverage things. I mean, there are so much softwares now. I can build an e-commerce site in a few clicks. I can use Shopify, for example. I can build a membership site, right, in a few clicks, bang, just like that. So I just think for people listening to that, you have to understand who you are. Like, what's your personality, right? Do you like to do, like, for example, I like to be with people, right? That's why I told you in Dubai, I like going to all these events, networking, speaking, like I like it, I miss it. Some people aren't like that. Some people are like, John, I don't want to speak to people. Right? I don't like talking to people. Like a friend of mine said, John, I'm allergic to people. That's what she said to me, right? So I'm allergic, I don't want to do that. So it really depends who you are, but I'll give you the easiest strategy to use. And this is a trend that's happening right now, so people can probably relate to this. Because of the lockdown, forced people to go online. So you probably noticed at that time there was more engagement, more likes, more viewers, 100%. And just more people spending time online. Is you need to find a platform that gives you a lot of organic reach. So any business, whether it's a product, service, whether it's a personal business, like whatever it is, like you want to have distribution, awareness. Okay, that's the first step. Second step for people listening or watching this, you've got to have business model that is that can be monetized. Because you see a lot of people got all these followers, but they don't make any money. And there's one person who's got like 13, they can't even sell 10 t-shirts. So you have to find a model that is actually monetizable. And how do you do that? MVP, minimum viable product. So you read this in the book, right? I read
everything in the book, so I love that you're talking about it.
So minimum viable product, like the great thing about this, especially with online, you can test what works, what doesn't work. So let's say you have an idea for a book, or you have an idea for a podcast, you have an idea for a course, or whatever you want to create. Maybe you've got a software that you want to test it. See if people will actually buy it before it's created. So you sell it first, and once you get, that's what Elon Musk did with Cybertruck. He created all these talks, and he basically got all these pre-orders and billions of dollars of orders, and that's what can be used as an MVP. Oh, people really want this, a prototype. So once you've got that, the third part is systemization. So people can now take their passion and turn it into an income, right? They can turn their passion into a profit. So I know people who do like drawing, right? And then they get paid for drawing now. And the growth of what's happening in today's market is what we call recurring revenue or membership sites. So for example, this podcast, if you wanted to, you could actually record this, give a little bit of it, say if you want to listen to the rest, you have to join my membership site. And you can charge $7 a month, you can charge $27, $97, whatever it is. But now you've got volume. In fact, Instagram now, all the platforms, Facebook, Instagram. So I just had a meeting with Facebook and Instagram, well, Meta now they're called, LinkedIn, Twitter, they are all doing this. Because now you have the growth of the creator economy now. So I would say if people want to start, you ask me what's a big tip, become a creator, monetize and add value to people's lives and create a membership so it becomes recurring. People only need to get 1,000 people at $10 a month. They make 10,000 a month, and that is 120,000 a year. And companies that have recurring income, right, and it has passive, it's predictable income, has a very high valuation. So that could be valued at $1 million. You can do that in a very short space of time.